Mr. Chairman. It's a very special honor for me to be part of this program and to be here to support this important effort to remind my fellow Americans and members of the international community of the loss and the suffering that the family members who spoke so eloquently earlier continue to endure. My compliments to the government of Japan, to Chief Cabinet Secretary Suga, to Ambassador Besho, and to the sponsoring governments who have made this event possible today, and a special thanks for allowing me to be a part of it. I also want to express my heartfelt appreciation to the family members who shared their stories with us today. Your courage, your determination, and your leadership of this important cause are inspirational and deeply moving. You deserve and will have our full support. As a former career diplomat, the fate of Japanese and American abductees and of Americans imprisoned in North Korea has been at the heart of my work for several decades. So too has the suffering of 25 million North Korean people who continue to endure unspeakable horrors about which we now know so much thanks to the work of the many defectors who risked their lives to escape to freedom and to tell us the truth. Over the years, I have discussed the cases of Americans and Japanese citizens directly with North Korean officials here in New York, including in this building, in Washington, in Pyongyang, in Berlin, Stockholm, Geneva, and other cities. In those meetings, I told the North Koreans that the DPRK would never be a normal country, nor would it be accepted into the international community unless it wiped away the stain on its reputation caused by its abduction and kidnapping of foreigners, its arrest and imprisonment of visitors, and its terrible treatment of its own citizens. These arguments over the years usually fell on deaf ears. But there were instances in which the DPRK leadership realized the need to do the right thing, and they did release several Americans. And there were also interesting cases in which my DPRK counterparts actually agreed quietly with my arguments. But for the families we heard from today, there has been no respite from suffering. And in the case of Otto Warmbier, we saw a horrific act of torture and abuse that reminded us of the nature of the regime that we deal with. For all the families, the suffering continues, and so does their search for the truth about their loved ones, as well as their struggle for justice and closure. All of this requires us to hold the North Korean regime accountable. We must continue to demand investigations into the whereabouts of those who disappeared, and we must demand that those who are still alive be returned to their families. The North Korean regime, which knows down to the last detail what happens on its soil, knows what happened to those abductees. It is time for Pyongyang to reveal the truth. In my experience, the best way to do this is to remind the Pyongyang regime that its future economic success, its access to normal trading relations and the international banking system, the removal of the sanctions, and the normalization of relations with Japan, the United States, and others, and the benefits that will flow from that, will require the DPRK to resolve all outstanding issues, including the profound human rights-related concerns we have heard about today. This is the price the regime will have to pay for acceptance as a normal country. When I traveled to Pyongyang with former Secretary of Defense William Perry in 1999, we told the North Korean leadership bluntly that the DPRK must choose one of two paths: cooperation and dialogue to secure a better future for the North Korean people, or confrontation and darkness. That is still the choice Pyongyang faces. But today, we have the means to make that choice even starker for North Korea. And we should do so instead of apologizing for or excusing the actions of a brutal regime. This is the time to ignore the former senior U.S. official who argued that we should pay the bill that the North Koreans sent us after they abused Otto Warmbier and sent him home to die. And let's try to put out of our minds that the U.S. president said that he didn't hold the North Korean leader responsible for Otto's death and that he believed Kim Jong-un's denials about Otto's fate. Our mission is straightforward going forward. This is the time to use the tools at our disposal to compel North Korea to make the right choice. Humanity demands that we do this, and history will remember whether we had the courage to do so. Thank you.